The reality is that the agreement's been broken. These
Yep.
LLMs busted open. We all have to think. I think we all have to. Your point is, I think we all have to think about that middle layer. What is the business that we're
Yes.
trying to run?
Welcome to Playbook Broken.
Welcome to Playbook Broken, where we break down the literal breakdown of business marketing and sales playbooks and try to discover what's next. Today, we got Will Allen, VP of Media and AI Privacy Products at Cloudflare. Very exciting. Will is focused on rethinking the business model for content creators in the age of AI and adapting media privacy products for the future of AI experiences. Very exciting stuff. Sounds like a great job. He's formerly VP at Adobe, overseeing Behance. I was a user of that, but clearly don't know how to pronounce it. Adobe Portfolio, 99U, Adobe Live, and the Content Authenticity Initiative. We also might need to talk about ACC sports. Will is a Tar Heel from North Carolina. I live right near Chapel Hill, actually, but I am a Seminole. Will is a double major in political science and philosophy. What a great combo, especially now that you're in tech. Will, welcome to Playbook Broken.
Mark, it's so good to see you. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Been excited for this conversation all week. So I have a long history with Cloudflare, actually. I looked it up just to make sure I wasn't going to misstate. I think Cloudflare was founded in 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds right. We're almost at our 15 year anniversary.
Amazing. So in around 2010, maybe it was 2011, we had moved. I was with Autism Speaks, and we were getting a lot of attention at that time. We had just moved to a Drupal hosting platform through Acquia, I think it was. And we got hit by bots, and like my guy's like, something's happening, the site's down. And we were introduced to Cloudflare. I want to say there was something like in the Bay Area or something, like you guys kind of came out of nowhere around that time, and it became a big thing. We're like, let's try it.
Yeah.
And so I just was thinking about why do I know Cloudflare? And that's it.
You know, it's like the amazing origin stories of Michelle and Matthew, our co-founders. And, you know, it used to be a big problem on the internet, right? People would send a lot of bots and bring down your website. And, you know, it's a solved problem now, not because it was easy, but because it was really freaking hard. And the teams here figured out a way to sort of mitigate it. And you still see like ever increasing sort of DDoS attacks. But it's been fun for me to sort of be a part of this company and see that as sort of the origins of where it is and where it is today, you know, nearly 15 years later.
Amazing. And we'll get into some of that, because I know AI is having a big impact on the ability to detect that and do things with that as well. Not to force a segue here, but can you imagine what kind of playbook Bill Belichick's going to bring to UNC football?
You know, so I loved my time in Chapel Hill. What an incredible place. Had the very useful majors of philosophy and political science. So thank goodness I started my first company pretty quickly outside when I graduated from there. But basketball was a sport. So basketball was the sport when I was there, and it was extremely easy to get football tickets. They're like basically given away, whereas for basketball, it was a big deal. And obviously basketball is still a big deal, but you know, UNC football is going to be pretty fascinating.
On the rise. Let's not get distracted with football, because I'll end up talking about Seminoles and ACC forever. So we won't do that, because most people don't care. Let's kind of dive into playbooks, right? This is Playbook Broken. So the concept of a playbook, I think it's a really good concept, right? There's there's some kind of documented thing that you do and you get a result. But what's your take? Like, how do you think about playbooks today in today's environment, whether it's AI, machine learning, whatever? How do you use them? And like, what's your playbook look like? And is it breaking?
I love playbooks and frameworks and ways to think about, you know, how do you build a process? How do you build a product? How do you build a business? How do you do all these things? And the opportunity for those is that they can help ground you in a very complex, changing world. The challenge of that is that it is a complex, fast changing world. And so you have to be very confident and comfortable with running a playbook, but then pretty quickly looking at it and saying, is this outdated? And maybe it worked last year and it may not work today. And maybe it worked 6 weeks ago and it's not going to work today. I think the cycle time we're seeing right now on any old playbooks is more rapid than any time I've ever personally experienced. And so things that you're like, boy, I solved this particular problem 5 years ago in this particular fashion. Let's just run the same playbook again. Maybe it'll work, but you got to go in eyes wide open and like really think about it of like, okay, how has the world changed? What's different today? How do we think about it now? And how do I really think about sort of reallocating and reconfiguring that playbook? So you can't hold them too sacred, right? They've got to be a rule of thumb and not something that you sort of just like hold on to for dear life.
Generally speaking, I agree with you. I'm curious how you think about your teams that have built process around those playbooks. And we've tried that before, or, I don't know that that's going to work, or doing this instead of that feels risky. Like, how
Yeah.
do you think about that in managing, your teams?
Some of these things are just cliches when you say them, but a lot of cliches are cool for a reason. And first and foremost, just got to be really crystal clear in your communication about sort of what your assumptions are, and those assumptions out of your head onto a shared Slack, a document, a video, however you choose to communicate. You have to be able to be declarative about what those things are. And I think that is like foundational for aligning people around a particular vision, playbook, what you're going to execute towards. If people understand what they're doing and they understand the key assumptions that you're making, you can push forward. And then it's actually pretty easy to sort of like course correct and say, you know what, maybe that didn't work 2 years ago, but we think it's going to work today and we're going to try it. And here's why. It's that very crystal clear communication that comes with it, of acknowledging the past and whether it worked or didn't work or whatever reasons, but also bringing them along in the journey. So I just have always been a believer in this. I've been very lucky to work with some of, I think of the world's best business communicators. And I think that's what they've done. And what they've taught me to do is just to try to over communicate as much as you can, find the right cadence and bring people along in the journey, because things are going to change. It's going to be hard. Things that worked aren't going to work. Things that didn't work will work. And it's just an unknowable world. And so if you're at least in sort of on the same page and aligned on a vision and where you're going, that can help propel you forward in whatever you're working towards.
I think that that's super insightful. And I think like getting that, as you're talking and thinking about like, what are the real challenges in running a playbook? And certainly clarity is like a really big challenge. How do you get that clarity all the way from the beginning, through the end? And how do you make adjustments sort of
Yes.
as you go? Is like, it's kind of the whole game in many ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I don't know, I find it fun. It's like, it's one of those things that you have to find it fun, because if you don't, it'd just be a lot of work. And you have to be really accustomed to repeating yourself, to saying the same thing over and over again. And, if you aren't tired of hearing yourself say it, that means you're not saying it enough. And just like being that diligent about repeating yourself. And what's, I think, amazing about that level of communication when you're trying to build something new or do something challenging, is that you just are always stress testing your assumptions. Every conversation I have when I'm thinking about building a new product, and we're working on some really cool initiatives here, I'm given the same pitch again and again and again. And that pitch is getting better every time because I'm getting real-time feedback. And that feedback is from partners and collaborators and people on my team and people on other teams and people in legal and people in finance and people in the outside world. And so you're just getting this constant source of feedback when you're running through the communication for what the playbook is. And that feedback is invaluable because it can help tell you, wow, this playbook is feeling like we're moving in the right direction and we're moving towards where we want to go, or whoa, this is something different. And this person brought up an idea that says the world has changed and I hadn't even thought of that. And so I just find that it's like actually in the process of over communicating and trying to align people is how you can sometimes like resurface that information about what's happening and how the context around you has changed.
God, there's so much in that's important to think about, both at the meta level, like what are the collection of playbooks that we have for a given
Yeah.
thing, versus like, what's the playbook for, I don't know, running Google ads? Like what's the,
Yeah.
it's funny. I was in a conversation earlier today talking about, experimenting with, to be fair, using, multiple AI agents to kind of mirror a content production with a human in the loop at each step.
Yeah.
And you
Cool.
sort of think about like, oh, like the work that was in the traditional, sitting down and like, what's the idea? And like, let me write a draft like that stuff almost gets flipped. And now the playbook is really more of the thinking and the
Yes.
sort of ushering through the process. It's, again, I think, AI, we'll get into that as well. So it's fascinating change. And I think the two things that are really sticking me with it is the clarity. And then you said something else that I think is really important, which I just keep running into, is repetition. Like it feels
Yes.
like, God, how many times have I said this? I've said this before, right? You're in a call, you're like,
Yeah.
I've said it. And you're like, yes, you've said it before. Like, okay, but it's
Yes.
good that I'm saying it again for me as
Yes.
much as for you.
Yes. I mean, and that's what great communicators do, right? And if you think about, I admire magicians and comedians, and like in my weird spare time, the two things that I love, they're always practicing, right? They're trying stuff out and they're doing the warm-ups and they're seeing what lands, what doesn't land, and like, how does this work and how do people respond? And it's not just, some people think of like the repetition as a one-way thing of like, I just have to say this again and again and again and it's repetitive. And that's not the case. It is it is a two-way door. You have the listening part is as critical, if not more critical, of like, I will talk about this new initiative, new product, new strategy, whatever it is we're running. But I'm always ingesting new information. And it's because of the variety of audiences and how you're tweaking words and tweaking framing that you'll get different responses. And I just find that incredibly valuable in whatever endeavor you're working on.
I'm just reflecting on my own ability or inability to do that. That's a seriously learned skill, right? Like that's not something you're just born good at. I mean,
Yes.
maybe some people are born good at it. I would.
The world's best salespeople certainly are really good at that. They're able to sort of like ingest that information, but it's something I've learned, and that I've worked towards, and I've, of course, a long way to go to continue to do that. But it's like just a core value for me when I'm running these things of like, how can I don't have all the answers. I don't have many of the answers even. And so, but I know how to ask the right questions, and I know how to like make a decision and then help pull people along in that. And so if I can sort of like anchor on those superpowers, I feel like I can help drive progress.
And interestingly, at a meta level, that's a playbook also, right? Like
exactly.
Your philosophy is actually a playbook of how you think about, getting to the point where you actually can do the other playbook, which is flipping it on itself, but all good. All right, Will, on Playbook Broken, guests choose between a number of segments, breakdowns, moments, workshops. There's all sorts of stuff I'm experimenting with, but you picked new rules. So let me just like turn it to you. You have the stage. Hit us with what you think you see, what's going on, and what are we going to do about it when it comes to playbooks?
If I think about like just the broadest of broad ecosystems and things that I'm thinking about a lot right now, it is the intersection of AI companies and content creators. And this is not new to me. I've been thinking about this since, probably 2018, 2019 when I was at Adobe. And it sort of continued on, obsession/passion, which is the same thing, and interest. And I think we have entered and are sort of accelerating in this really fascinating new world, in particular for content creators. And this is true if you're a photographer, if you're a designer, if you're a writer, if you're a journalist, if you're a publisher, content creators sort of like with a capital C, like speaking to all of them. And how do they deal with this new world of, very hungry AI companies and foundation model companies that are out there sort of ingesting content to use for training, to use for RAG, to use to make their AI products better. And I just think it's an incredibly fascinating and challenging world. And we need an entirely new framework to think about the value proposition between those, and how this world changes. And this was, in some cases, this trail has been clear for a while. It's accelerating. And I think we have to be like, look at it without a lot of sentimental value and just sort of accept this new reality that we're in of what is the level playing field between a foundation model company or a large AI company that is ingesting large amounts of content, and you as a content creator or a creator, designer, photographer, website owner, publisher, and how do you find that right value exchange? So I spent a lot of time thinking about sort of the intersection of these, and I can go into a lot more detail if it's helpful.
It is helpful because I'm trying to like, I get what you're saying at a meta level. We've got these new platforms, and we've also, like got almost like access to superpowers in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
We're all learning how to use them. I think it's fascinating. I think the experimentation is wonderful. Like you see these memes pop up of like the baby AI video, and the new one is the VO3, like I'm a prompt. Am I a prompt? Get me out of here. Like, I think the experimentation is wonderful, but the translation of that into work product and how do you move forward with these tools? I think that's what you're getting at.
And if you think about sort of like the unspoken agreement of the internet for the past, 15 years, 14 years, something like that, was that I put great content on the internet. I get indexed by a search engine. People go to that search engine, they type in some query, they find my content, and they come and visit me. And when they come and visit me and my website, maybe I monetize it via ads, maybe I monetize it via events or subscriptions, or maybe it's just ego, right? I had a blog in 2008, I want to say. My wife had one in 2007, 2008 as well. Made $0, but I loved it. It was like fun to write. I wrote a personal finance blog. She wrote a food blog. And just that ego, that sort of like referral traffic back was a big part of it, right? It was a fun experiment. But for many media companies and publishers and content creators, it's not just ego, it's livelihood, right? It's like, how do I actually compensate my journalists, pay for news, pay for this incredible pieces of content? And if that agreement's breaking down, right? So I now have, search engines and now LLMs and sort of foundation model companies indexing my content. the referral traffic that's coming back is falling off a cliff, and we're seeing this accelerate. So an interesting thing about Cloudflare is we see roughly 20% of the internet gets routed through our sort of global network. So we see an enormous amount of data. And you can sort of look at, we call it sort of like the crawl to referral ratio. How many times does Google sort of crawl an average site, and this is sort of aggregated across all of our data, all our network, versus how many times do they send referral traffic out? A number of years ago, it was sort of like roughly a 2-to-1 ratio for Google. So Google will sort of like crawl your site 2 times for every 1 visitor they sent you. It has transformed into like the 6 to 10 range, right? So it's gotten 3, to 5 times worse. And it's not like they are crawling you more, so the referral traffic is going up. The rate of crawling is actually roughly staying the same at an aggregate level, but the referral traffic is tanking. That is a existential challenge for you as a content creator, or a publisher, or a news organization. Here was a key source of traffic that you were using to monetize and use for discovery that is gone. And that's, as we sometimes joke here, which is not particularly funny, but that's the good news, right? It's even more challenging with other foundation model companies where the ratios are even more askew. If you look at it as a consumer, I woke up this morning and I had a question about some Minecraft custom command for my, my middle son. And I went to ChatGPT and I just love it. Like I want to really emphasize, I am extremely pro AI, and I subscribe to the ChatGPT Pro, Gemini Pro. So I use Gemini 2.5. I'm using O3. I'm using Cloud Opus 4. I'm such a fan of all of these, but I can see in my own behavior that I'm not clicking through. And that becomes an extreme challenge for a content creator, where this unspoken agreement of great content that's out there, at least I can sort of then, if it gets indexed, it gets sort of come back and I can monetize that again, either via ego or ads or subscriptions or events or brand recognition or something. That's breaking down. And so a lot of my time and the team here, we're thinking about how do you sort of re-level that playing field and move to a different model where, AI companies can thrive. They have fresh, amazing content that they can use to make those experiences great, and original content can thrive. And people have the incentives to build brands and owned and operated websites and domains and properties, and to build out sort of like the long tail of the internet, which we have, all known and loved, and we want to help preserve and make better.
Existential, the agreement that we had, the referral traffic that's gone, this is ground shift. Forget playbooks. I mean, this is playbooks at some level, but it's way beyond a playbook. It's fundamental physics in a way.
Yes.
We Third Word Media, we run Search Engine Land, we run MarTech, we're now owned by SEMrush. The fundamental agreement has changed. I think all of us who are looking at this and thinking about this are kind of know it's happening or happened, some version of that. But I don't think that our business models or our egos are quite there. We're going to be forced to deal with this. I know, I think about this all day long, every day. I, like you, love AI. At the same time, I love the thing that's probably going to force me to pull my hair, whatever hair I have out of my head, because my first job, I don't know what your first job, my first job at the internet was 93, 92, 93 in that time zone. The agreement has always been the same. It started to change a little bit when Google was doing stuff like when they first had Google Flights, and then there was AMP, and now you got Discover, and it's featured snippets. We've seen the progression of this. It's funny. It's a weird story, but I have I'm sure we all have our TikTok time, right? So I call it at night. I flip around TikTok for an hour or two. And there's this woman I follow who's wonderful. She's in LA. She works in Hollywood, and she's talking a lot about VO and the agreement that we had, right? They've consumed all this content. It's all copyrighted material. There's no question about that. They're being allowed to do that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have an opinion on that, but they've done it. And now the fundamental agreement has shifted. And I was making an argument in the comments with it, not argument, but we were discussing in the comments just this morning about this is just more of the same, right? It's the fundamental expectation. It's the foundational agreement that we have is broken, and that trust has been broken for a long time in the publishing space. But from the creator space, and it forces you, I think, to think about platforms like TikTok and YouTube. But everywhere I turn, literally my entire life at this point feels algorithmically mediated. So from a creator standpoint, I'm curious, not that I want to make this all about Cloudflare, but it's fine. But what in the world are you guys thinking about? How are you thinking about solving that, or at least helping that, because you're right, whether it's a personal blog
Yep.
or, martech.org, like how am I supposed to think about that?
It's incredibly challenging, like intellectually interesting in a way, but mostly challenging, right? And it's hard because again, we want both sides to succeed. And I personally want both sides to succeed. I want to accelerate our work in AI because I think it's so powerful and can help with so many different things. And I want fresh, amazing, new, great content that can be pulled in to any AI system. One day I want an agent that can go out there on my behalf and find incredible research or unlock news articles or different things. And ideally pay for those, right? Or whatever the right value exchange is, but making that sort of value exchange clear. We think about it in a number of different ways. One is just to understand, right? And so can you just first audit and understand what is going on with your website or your app or your sort of media property on the web? And that's like kind of just the most basic table stakes of like, first an audit. Can I just audit and understand how many times am I being crawled? By whom? Like which crawlers are out there? Are they obeying my robots.txt? Are they not obeying that robots.txt? What content are they doing and how frequently are they doing this? So just, like the OODA loop, just like at first, just like understand and like what's going on, observe. It's like, okay, here's the lay of the land for me. That was missing, even, not even that long ago. We built out a part of our dashboard. If you're a Cloudflare customer, you can log in. It's called AI Audit. Just a really quick glance of just looking at, okay, here's this crawler crawled this many times. Here's this crawler crawled this many times. That's really critical. Step one, but that's just step one. Step two is define. You need to like define what your business policy is. And step two is actually the hardest. Like this is where the crux of the issue is, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. And I love the internet for a lot of reasons. One of these is because you have, an infinite variety of opinions. Some people want to be absorbed into the Borg, right? They want to sort of, Tyler Cohen has sort of said that like, I am writing for the future AIs. And I actually love that phrase. And I love how he thinks about that of like, he is writing for the coming AGI or super intelligence that's out there. And that's how he wants his writing to be done, to be ingested and pulled into that world. And there are a lot of people who are like that as a writer. We think about it in a certain sense with our developer documentation. If you're building an application, a net new application on top of Cloudflare, we have great dev docs that sort of tells you to do that. We make those dev docs very easy to be consumed by foundation model companies and different AI systems. We have like an LLMs.txt. We have a copy as Markdown because we want that to be out there and to be pulled into Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude. Because when somebody's asking Gemini, how do I build a Cloudflare worker and build an amazing application? You want Gemini to have the latest information. But then there are others who are like, wait, I want to stop all of this. I want to be a walled garden and I want to block up everyone across the board. And then yet others who are like, I will block most, but I want to charge some. So this define step in the middle, it's the crux of the question that's out there, but that's a really important step that has to be done by the business owner, publisher, content creator. And there are different paths you can take. Then the last one is enforce. Once you understand what your policies that you want to have and what you want to do, then you've got to enforce them, right? And so if you're saying, hey, great, I want my content to be fully ingested by every AI, amazing. At Cloudflare can help you do that, right? We can help you generate markdown versions of your text. We can sort of get it. We can make sure it's fast and easily, readily available to every crawler across the globe. Great. If you're saying, hey, I want to selectively choose which companies can do this, great. We can help you sort of allow this one, block this one. If you're like want a giant pause button and block all of them, you have a one-click toggle where you can say, I block all AI crawlers. Over 1 million websites have already, self-selected and said, great, I want to block everything right now. And it's totally their prerogative. And that's great for their business. If they define it that way, one-click option, we make it dead simple. It's free. Any plan can do this on Cloudflare. We, gave that away very intentionally. And then the others, like sort of at the other side, we're like, hey, I want to build a new monetization model. We're exploring a lot of areas there where maybe they struck a one-off deal with one foundation model company and they want to allow them through, give them a fast lane, but block everybody else. Great, we can help you enforce that. Maybe they want to do something more programmatic. We're working on interesting things there to help that happen. So kind of those 3 steps: audit, define, and then enforce. And that's sort of like the broad way we think about enabling content creators to take back some level of control and get back into the driver's seat.
I think the framework's amazing. I think, we've observed, and we're not a huge publisher. We're more of a boutique publisher, smaller audiences, B2B. But, we're watching what's going on here. And, there was that initial rush of like, block it. And then you sort of come to realization, well, if we block it, like how are we going to get cited? And I think like from an SEO or an AIO or,
Yeah.
the whatever we're going to call it,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
from that playbook standpoint, it's like, we all have a lot to learn. We can't even agree on the letters, let alone
Exactly.
mechanics. It's like
The
insane.
GEO generative, like, yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
I don't know.
Right.
We've been back and forth with all of them. And at the end of the day, like, again, you could stick at a very high level and say like, well, it's all sort of search optimization, sure, information retrieval. Maybe it'll be an emerging acronym, but it doesn't really matter what we call it. The reality is that the agreement's been broken. These
Yep.
LLMs busted open. We all have to think, I think we all have to, your point is, I think we all have to think about that middle layer. What is the business that we're
Yes.
trying to run? It's, I think, especially challenging for media publishers, right? I mean, I think,
Yes.
and it's funny, I have a friend who works at a company. They have a subscription model. We don't have a subscription model. He's never had more than 50% SEO. And he's seeing even less, and they're actually having some success with email. Our SEO numbers are falling, but we have a subscription model. So how do you
Yep.
you really have to think through
Yeah.
fundamentally. And I think that's a challenge with AI across the board, whether it's on the content creation side or the information retrieval side. Like, what are the business models, of the future, and how does that change a playbook? I think, just as an aside, because I know that you're a huge AI guy, and so am I. Like, one of the most interesting things to me is the light bulb came on about a month and a half ago. I'd heard vector embeddings, like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I kind of like that, but then like, it didn't like click. I was like, oh, I actually understand enough to know, like, oh my God, the way we write our content, we have to rethink. Like,
Yeah.
it even goes back to, like, just the fundamental way it works. It feels, it's not a call earlier this week. It feels very much like early Google days. Not in that it's the same, but it's very much like,
Yep.
we're all playing with this, and, you can sort of hack the system today in gray and white hat and black hat ways. If you're familiar with how, an LLM actually works, you can sort of goose it a little bit, I should say, right? We're using certain sites.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's will be sustainable. So again, playbooks will change and evolve,
Exactly.
over time. That's fascinating. I think the notion of enforcing also is interesting because, and maybe we could talk a little bit about this. Like, there are good actors and bad actors. And we assume that when OpenAI says you're in private mode, they're actually not watching what you're doing. We also don't know what DeepSeek is doing. We don't know what these other platforms are doing. We don't know who else is out there. We, in fact, are Cloudflare customers, and we've looked, and it's kind of surprising to see, like, wait a minute, what are all these crawlers? What are they doing? And what are they looking at? And so, like, for an enforcement standpoint, you guys sit in front, so you sort of can see all the traffic. That's kind of what you're saying, is that we actually can block anything that looks suspicious given some kind of rubric.
The good thing about sort of the origins of Cloudflare, of sort of, coming up and sort of helping prevent and mitigate DDoS attacks, which are only increasing in sort of intensity, but we're getting really, really, have gotten really good at over the years, is you just see lots of data and lots of bot traffic. And in some ways, like, that's just the core part of what we do, is understanding every HTTP request that comes through. What does it look like? Where is it coming from? What are the fingerprints for it? What are the patterns? What are we seeing across, the full long tail of the internet that we can sort of then look at and analyze and bubble up? So we feel, I don't know, it's a privilege to be able to sit at this much data and understand, because then we could apply it and help protect lots, millions and millions of customers for free, right? There's you can put a domain behind Cloudflare and get protected from a DDoS mitigation for free. And that's a key part of how we think about this world, and will continue to be how we think about this world. But there are an increasing number of crawlers that are out there, and probably like as much, but also interesting, will be an increasing number of agents. The number of people, and we have, again, an entire developer platform where people can, really easily spin up a new agent to sort of go off and browse the web and do things on their behalf. This is a new world that's starting to sort of come and be in shape, but that is a different type of bot, in its own way, right? As a sort of like human intermediated or sort of human out of the loop interaction with the world, that is going to only increase. And so if we thought we saw a lot of bots in the past, and, just, buckle up, because it's going to be, infinitely more in the future, when each of us has, dozens or, literally infinite number of agents working on our behalf out there. So preparing for that is something we're thinking about a lot, both sort of accelerating to make it easy to build, but then as a website owner, content creator, publisher, what's your policy? What do you want to do? Are you like, great, if somebody wants to book a hotel on my website through an agent, I'm happy with that, or no, I want the direct relationship with the customer? It's up to you. But we want to help you implement and enforce those rules depending on where you want to sit.
You touched on something that I had not thought of. So I was like, whoa, hold on. So I think we already know, I think you'll agree that we're going to see increases in quote unquote search volume, right? The more chatbots clearly are an incredible user experience that will drive high levels of engagement. So
Yep.
whether we call it chatting or searching, it's going to increase, right? And
Yes.
maybe exponentially, but it's going to increase.
Yes.
So now combine that with agents. Oh my God. Are you seeing, like, do you have proof that this is true? Like, is traffic actually overall internet traffic? You guys are sitting on top of, I think you said 20% of all internet traffic. So are you
Yeah.
actually starting to see increases that you hadn't seen prior to, let's say, when ChatGPT first came out?
We have on our website, radar.cloudflare.com, it's fully public. We publicize tons of sort of like core internet data. And so it's fun to sort of watch that and start to see some like real-time trends that are coming out. And I've got great colleagues, David Bells in particular, who sort of runs that program and starts to pull all of these things out. The fun thing about trends is that sometimes it shows up in the numbers, and sometimes it's like the internet's so big, it's actually hard to sort of see these things come through. And so like with agents in particular, it's not quite enough to punch through yet to show up at like true internet scale. But because of our developer platform and because of who we talk to, we're seeing it, like it's coming. And part of it is we want to help build that future of like making Cloudflare the best place to build agents, and people are doing so. And I think that I just agree. Like I feel like agents really click for me as a concept when you understood that it's no longer like one-to-one, like I'm going to have a travel agent and,
Right.
and a financial agent. It's like, once you have one, you can have an infinite number. Like,
That's right.
it's like going from 1 to 50 million is not that hard. And that's what is going to be happening, right? And you're seeing that sort of build and towards this crescendo, and it is transformational, I think, for the internet. Two of my other colleagues, actually a big group of colleagues, two in particular, have been working on a new basically way for identifying yourself as a bot, which is most relevant for agents. And so it's web bot auth. It's an open standard that we're helping to sort of get out into the world. And a lot of this is sort of seeing this train that's coming towards us of like an agentic future, recognizing that the tools in the past, the old playbooks are broken. And you're going to need better proof that like this agent is working on my behalf, or this bot is who I say it is. And so this web bot auth is a new initiative that we're working towards that I think is actually perfect. It fits in this conversation because it's about this new world. Do you want to allow these new agents, or do you want to block them? Your prerogative. How do they self-identify? Because the old playbooks are broken. So we need new ones and new technology to help solve that problem.
100%, 100%. I'm still reeling on thinking about the global impact traffic when we all have agents on our phones, and we don't need, like, you make another really good point that I hadn't really fully thought about, but like just thinking about my own usage, I created a huge amount of GPTs, and then I created a huge amount of projects. And now I'm like, do I need all that? Can I just kind of centralize all of that?
Yeah.
And have one interface that's just Mark GPT. In fact, I started sketching out, what would that look like? How could I build Mark GPT so that I can just go in and say like, hey, I'm in work mode, I'm in play mode, I'm in travel mode, I'm in Alaska, like help, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, and so that's actually really interesting. And it does align with kind of what we're saying, which is, the playbook is broken, not because the old ways didn't once work. It's that the fundamental agreement has changed. And I think that really understanding that and kind of accepting it, like, regardless if you are an AI fan or not, the agreement has changed. And I think I'm trying to think of like how to articulate it, but like in the future, and this is, I think, the story that we're all wrestling with SEO and AIO. In the future, you're just going to have less traffic to your website because people don't need to come there anymore. Right. Like, I think and that's a very hard one. Like I said something to somebody the other day, like, we're still stuck on page views as a measurement. Right. Like most of us are like, and so like that whole thing is flopping over, and it will take humans some time to process that, obviously, but I think that the change is kind of rushing at us, and it's exciting, but it's also like, oh yeah, really?
I mean, imagine a future, which is basically here, but like, you fast forward just a couple of months. I love deep research from Gemini and OpenAI's deep research. Thankfully they have the same name, so I can refer to them with one moniker. But I use them both. Like literally anything in my life I'm like thinking about, I like have them both go out and run, and then they come back with incredible reports, and I sort of compare and contrast them. But like, imagine like just a slight twist on that, where you say, all right, I'm traveling to London next month. Go do deep research on where I should stay, how I should flee when I'm there. What restaurants should I go check out? What's the best hotel? What's the attractions? What entertainment should I see this, this show while I'm there, and have it come back and most importantly, load it up with some money and say like, here's a budget of $10, $20, $200, whatever amount, go pay for the content, right? Because I want the best, most interesting, fresh content for that deep research agent to come back, and have it be as simple as that of saying, I'm going to London, plan the trip for me. Here's my credit card. Here's my budget. Go off and execute on my behalf. Like that world is very close to where we are today. And we were thinking a lot about sort of like that payment mechanism and that value exchange, and making it simple for not only a crawler at the aggregate scale, but also sort of the agent at that scale. Because that's a pretty powerful world. And that you can't be sentimental, like you said, about the past of where I used to get referral traffic, now I don't. We've got to think about it differently. It's a new world. And so what's the right business model for you? It's up to you to decide, but there are interesting things that are coming out of it.
Yes, I've thought those scenarios through. I've actually had that conversation with AI, like help me think what this might look like and what would do to a business model like through media and those kinds of things. So that's kind of an evolving discussion, but I mean, the tech and the infrastructure is kind of already here. And so now, like, I don't think we're quite at the point where we're just waiting for new models or models are slowing down, but it is sort of amazing the speed, even looking back 3 years and saying, it wasn't that good and then it was pretty good. And all of a sudden it's really good. And now it's going to be like superhuman level good it's here. Like it's pretty crazy.
And think about it. So much of this is like, it's context specific in the AI world. And that's where fine tuning comes in. If I'm an attorney, I'm going to want to have it trained and I want to have like different guardrails attached to it. If I'm doing accounting, same thing. If I'm doing medical research, same thing. And so there's so much opportunity as a content creator to sort of know your niche, know what you're really good at, and you should get compensated for it, right? How you get compensated is going to change, but you should find the way, right? Like what's more valuable than incredible legal analysis to an AI that is trying to understand, how to give advice about sort of some legal thing. Like you're going to want those, legal reports. And how do you sort of like find the right value exchange where you are incentivized as the content creator to keep writing and creating that legal analysis in this, hypothetical. And then that can sort of get disseminated to the right AI models or right agents in a way that you feel is fair and that the world also benefits from.
That's going to evolve quickly. I'm curious to see what you guys do. We'll be kind of pay attention to the Cloudflare stuff. And I'm fascinated by all that. It is existential, and that does make it exciting, but it also means that like existential crises do have stress with them. And so it's like, what do you do with that,
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So before we wrap up, let's kind of get into the last bit here. Like just looking at either, you can address this however you want, right? Professionally, personally, whatever. But I'm just sort of fascinated with how people sort of force themselves through the brick wall, right? Kool-Aid man style. Like I got to get this done.
Yeah.
So talk to me about like either an example or a process, like when you're faced with a hard problem, low energy, whatever, like how do you force yourself to get through the wall?
There was a tweet that I saw from a woman at OpenAI, and I wish I knew her name because I would love to find the tweet again. And it just said, the universe doesn't want you to ship, but ship we must. And I love that. Because, the strongest force in the world is entropy. Like the default state is things sort of dissipating out. And to build anything new, to create, to push stuff out in the world requires enormous effort. And it's consistently applied, enormous effort that you're just pushing these things forward. And I just love the framing of like, you are fighting entropy and it's going to take some work and it's not always comfortable. Many years ago now, but I was at Adobe and we're trying to launch this incredible initiative called the Content Authenticity Initiative, which is about sort of establishing provenance standards for media. So how do you know where a piece of media came from? And it was like the day before or 2 days before the launch. And one of the key partners that we wanted to get over the line to join us in the announcement, like they weren't signing yet. Like they were like almost there, but not quite there. And I remember going to my boss, Scott Belsky at the time and saying, I don't know, should we just like punt and we'll announce the next week? And he just like looked at me and it's like, you've got this, like hold the line, like get out there, push the universe doesn't want you to ship this thing, but ship you must. And we held the line, we did it. They joined the announcement and it was a big success. Right. And it's just a good example of I am filled with doubts. You will be filled with doubts. Everything will just not work in your favor. And it's like, things are going to break and something's happened 2 weeks before. And that's just all part of the game. And that's just life. And you just have to push beyond it and get it out into the world because nothing is better than getting that real world feedback and it's not going to be perfect. You want it to be, and you got to ship with a high degree of confidence towards it. But just that sort of like relentless focus of it's our job to get this out in the world, whatever it is you're working on, at the new product, a new business, a new initiative, just that sort of relentless forward progress. And I feel, very lucky here at Cloudflare. I'm joined by colleagues who have a relentless appetite for shipping. They know one mode, and it's like shipping aggressively. And so I felt like I found a lot of kindred spirits here where everyone's like, let's just go, let's get this out, and we're going to learn, and we're going to learn in real time with our users, with our customers, with our clients. And we're going to make it amazing. We may not get everything right, but we'll learn pretty quickly. So I don't know, that relentless forward progress is something that's just a mantra I try to live by.
I love it. And that progress will get you through walls, and help you force yourself. It's great. We talked about a lot. So we covered a ton of ground. We clearly agree that playbooks are breaking and are either broken and they need to be rebuilt. Talked a lot about AI. Obviously, the forcing function of what AI is doing to us is what's happening in our universe. You talked a lot about clarity of communication and how you manage that stuff, which is amazing. Existential, I wrote down. It definitely is existential, but also very exciting. And I think the antidote to all of that is really simple. I mean, ship it, right? Just keep shipping.
Yeah.
This is amazing. So, before we totally wrap up, Will, tell us where we can find you. Tell us a little bit more about like what you're up to personally and how to connect.
I'm on, X, Twitter, whatever you call it these days, /William Allen. Follow me there and, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to hear from anyone. I'm at Cloudflare these days building. We've got a lot of stuff, and particularly this next couple months that we're getting close to launching that I cannot wait to share with the world. Talk about sort of this relentless forward progress in shipping. We are so close to getting some stuff that I think is going to be pretty transformative. And I can't wait to talk about it more.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching Playbook Broken. You can find us on YouTube, on martech.org, all the audio channels, basically everywhere. We put this thing everywhere. If you have comments or feedback for me, leave it. You can find me on LinkedIn, and thanks for watching.